You will end this episode with a vertical video ready for Reels or TikTok, built from a 16:9 original, and nobody will spot the seam. The background will bend and stretch to fit the new frame, and your subject will stay sharp and centered. I ran it on a 10-second clip, and the whole pipeline took me under 4 minutes. No manual masking, no rebuilding the scene, just 3 steps inside Runway Gen-4, and the output holds up at full resolution. This is outpainting that actually thinks about the motion in your footage, not just the pixels at the edge. By the time we are done, you will know exactly when to trust it and when to walk away. You are a short-form editor who gets handed landscape footage and asked to make it vertical. Or you are a solo creator who shot a talking head for YouTube and now wants the same clip on Instagram without refilming. Or you are a commercial editor with a client who suddenly needs a 9:16 cut for a paid campaign, and the original shoot is over. The problem is always the same. Cropping destroys the composition. You lose the headroom, you chop the hands, you kill the background. Outpainting removes that dilemma. It invents the missing space above and below your frame with coherent detail, so you can reframe the subject without losing the scene. It is for anyone who is tired of the zoom-in pan trick that screams, "I just cropped this." It is not for you if you need pixel-perfect accuracy in the generated areas. We will get to that. Open Runway Gen-4 and start a new project. Import your 16:9 clip. Do not trim anything yet. The tool works best when it sees the full motion range. The first step is picking your export ratio. Gen-4 offers 9:16 as a preset, so select that. Here is why this order matters. You must decide the frame before you touch the outpainting controls. If you outpaint first and then change the canvas, you generate one batch of pixels and then discard half of them. That is wasted render time and wasted credits. So set the ratio first. Next, locate the outpainting tool in the transform panel. It is labeled clearly. When you activate it, Gen-4 shows you the new canvas as a ghosted border around your original frame. You will see 4 directional arrows. This is your control over where the generation happens. You can push the frame up, down, left, or right, or any combination. For a talking head, push it up and down. That gives you headroom above and breathing room below. Do not pull it sideways unless you need to. Horizontal compensation requires more invention from the model, and that raises the chance of artifacts. Then you adjust the motion influence slider. This is the key step. It tells the model how strongly to match the movement in your original footage. Crank it to the max for a moving subject. Leave it low if the subject is static. I set it at full for my test because the clip had the subject gesturing. The slider is not cosmetic. It changes how the generated background flows with the action. After you set that, hit Generate. Gen-4 renders a preview at a lower resolution first. Watch it once. Look at the edges where the new pixels meet the old frame. You are checking for 2 things: continuity of texture and continuity of motion. If the preview looks clean, render the full version. This second pass takes longer, but it outputs at the clip's native resolution. In my test, the preview took 40 seconds, and the full render took 2 minutes for a 10-second clip. The final file came out as an MP4 at 1080 by 1920, which is the exact spec for vertical social posts. Now, the part that catches everyone off guard: audio. Outpainting does not touch your audio track, which is good because it keeps sync, but you must re-export the video with audio. Gen-4's export defaults to video only. So after the render finishes, export the file, then bring it into any editor and mux the original audio back in. It took me an extra minute in Premiere. That is the whole workflow. 3 steps, 1 render pass, 1 audio reattach. I tested it on a talking head clip from a client shoot. The original was 16:9, 1920 by 1080, 10 seconds long, filmed at 24 frames per second. The subject stood center left, gesturing toward a whiteboard. I set the export to 9:16, pushed the frame up and down, set motion influence to maximum, and rendered. The full render took 2 minutes and 15 seconds on a standard plan. It cost roughly 1 credit per second of footage, so 10 credits total. The output was a 1080 by 1920 MP4, 18 megabytes. Now the quality check. I zoomed into the generated regions at 200%. The wall texture continued without a seam. The floor line matched the angle. The subject's arm stayed inside the frame during the widest gesture, which would have been cut off in a simple crop. The background motion on the up-extended region tracked the camera's subtle handheld shake. That is the impressive part. Gen-4's optical flow estimation carried the motion into the new pixels. It was not static. I compared it against a manual outpainting in a photo editor with frame-by-frame warping. My manual version took 45 minutes. Gen-4 took 2 minutes and 15 seconds. The model's version was better. Now, the limits. First, this feature invents content. It does not reconstruct the original scene from some hidden data. If your background has text, like a store sign or a poster, Gen-4 will hallucinate gibberish. I tested it on a clip with a menu board behind the subject. The generated region above the board replaced it with a smooth gray wall. It looked fine, but the context was gone. If your scene depends on readable signage, this tool fails. Second, it struggles with heavy perspective. If your original footage has strong forced perspective, like a corridor or a wide-angle lens, the generated pixels cannot extrapolate the vanishing point correctly. The lines will bend. I pushed a clip with a hallway, and the vertical edges curved outward when extended upward. It was unusable. Third, motion influence is a blunt instrument. You cannot paint specific areas to be static. The whole frame inherits the same motion value. If you have a moving subject and a static background, the generated regions default to matching the subject's motion, which creates a subtle drift in the background. It is noticeable if you stare at it, but a casual scroll won't catch it. So who should not use this? Anyone with text-heavy backgrounds, anyone with extreme wide-angle shots, and anyone who needs the generated pixels to be production accurate for a cinema release. This is a social media tool, not a VFX solution. The obvious alternative is to do it manually in After Effects. You would use content-aware fill on the video layer, which analyzes surrounding frames and patches the missing areas. It is more accurate for static scenes with complex textures. The one situation where it wins is when your background has repeating geometry that the model needs to preserve, like brick walls or tiled floors. Content-aware fill will track those patterns across frames with near-perfect consistency. It also fails the same way on text, but it gives you per-frame control, so you can correct a bad patch by hand. That control takes time. A 5-second clip might take you 2 hours to patch and clean up. Gen-4 does it in a minute. If you are under a deadline and your background is simple, Gen-4 wins. If you are working on a hero shot that needs perfect continuity and you have the hours, After Effects wins. There is no middle ground here. Your next step today is simple. Pull 1:16:9 clip that has a clean background and no text. Run it through the exact 3 steps I just described. Set your ratio first. Push the frame, match the motion, and render. Compare it against a plain crop. I guarantee you will see the difference in the first 5 seconds. That is the fastest way to evaluate if this feature deserves a spot in your workflow. And when you are ready to take this further, the next episode covers motion brush, controlling where movement happens in your scene.